riding a white stallion down the beach. And so my Aunt Allison said, "Oh, I'll do that with you." My Aunt Connie was like, "I'm not doing that. I don't like horses." So my Aunt Allison and I went, and I'm riding this bareback stallion down the beach and like, woohoo, with these Mexican kids who were like helping us with the horses. And we came back all, "Oh my gosh, what a time." And my Aunt Connie says to me, "Oh, I met these girls. One is Rebecca and the other one is Elizabeth. One of them lost their watch." So we all started helping these girls look for their watch. Well, we never find the watch, and we end up saying, "Hey, let's all go to dinner." So these two gals were from Utah. We went to dinner, and it was one of those dinners. It lasted like 6 hours. Everybody in the restaurant was singing, and, it was just one of those crazy nights, right? And then the next day we hung out again because they were camping on the beach, and we were at the hotel right behind. And one of the gals, Rebecca, says to me, "Hey, I won a National Endowment for the Humanities grant from the government, and I'm going to travel for a year. I'm a teacher, and I'm going to go travel around the world." And I was like, "Wow, I'd love to do that." She's like, come with me." So evidently, Rebecca made this offer to probably 20 people that she knew in her life. I was the only one who got rid of their apartment, packed up their stuff, left New York City in a U-Haul, drove across the country, and then flew to Australia to do it. You know what I mean? That
How
was
old
me.
were you?
24.
Welcome, my dear friend, Tara Thomas.
Thank you, Lee Papa.
I'm so happy to have you here on the podcast of
Thank
Sunday
you.
Communion with Lee Papa and Friends.
All right,
Thus,
I hope I don't
friends.
disappoint. And
Never, never.
I'm not very exciting, but we'll see.
You are very exciting, and we're going to go all over the place. Normally, I'm like, okay, let's do some background, but today I
Hmm.
wanted to jump right in on a question that just popped into my head while I was grabbing some coffee before our time together. And that is that everyone has a story. We're recording this post Thanksgiving. So if you were with friends or family or around a dinner table, we have conversations and sometimes we get to meet new people. And I just find people fascinating because everyone has a story. And I
Right?
believe that everybody has a book in them.
That's
And
what they say.
so
We all have one book in us, right?
yes, whether anybody reads it or not is what I usually say about mine. But we do have a story and a book in us. So, what would you say are the highlights, or I know I'm putting you on the spot because we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but what would the name of your book be, or what would the content of the book be? Like, what would the theme be of your book?
Definitely have this book in me. And in fact, someone once gave me a book and said, "This woman is you." And I read the book and I was like, "Oh my God, this woman has had so many of the same experiences." And it was about travel. It was about opening up to the world. I have been to 82 countries.
Wow.
And I spent 2 years of my life in my 20s backpacking around the world, which is unusual for Americans and even more unusual for Black Americans. And I have met people, I have experienced things, I have seen war accidentally, I have fallen in love on the beach, I have had unusual liquor, I was attacked by monkeys at the monkey temple in Nepal. I mean, that would be the book. It would be all of these crazy travel stories. I was just telling one a couple of weeks ago where a friend of mine was laughing hysterically because I was telling her how dumb I was in my 20s. I didn't know there was a war in the former Yugoslavia. And I thought I was going to Sarajevo where the Olympics had been. And they were trying to tell me, like, there's a war on. I'm like, I didn't hear anything about this. As if I am the ultimate expert, right, on where there's a war. And yeah, it's full of stories like that.
And you said you're not sure if this was going to be interesting. I mean, come on, Tara. I've known you how many years? I don't
Quite a
50,
good number of years, 6, like 6,
six,
7 years, yeah.
7 years. Instantly fell in love with you, And
But I knew you long before that, because remember I told you I used to pass by your picture at shows where you had the wellness lounge, and I'd be like so intimidated, like this woman looks like she has it all together. I never dreamed we would ever become friends because you seem so classy and sophisticated and
and then you met
evolved.
me.
No. You seem kind of untouchable. You know what I mean? Like
Oh.
very, and I was like, oh, well, she would never talk to me, but it was,
Isn't that funny how we have these perceptions of
yes,
people? And I mean, when we met, I mean, we're whatever that was that you thought is not.
not
I
at
mean,
all.
is not who I am.
Not at
Um,
all. I think it was your picture was so pretty and like polished.
oh, no, because
And
it was a professional.
yes, you had a professional
It
side.
wasn't just,
But I
um,
did really see you for years before I ever met you. And I knew exactly who you were. And I was very intimidated by what I thought you were. And it was not at all who you are. You are one of the most open, warm, just giving, helpful, insightful people I've ever met.
no,
And I
Karen,
don't say that lightly because I'm a little bit like, I'm a little skeptical.
thank you. Thank you. Well,
And
we have to give a shout out to PK, which we did
yeah,
also before. She is
yeah,
a connector, and
it really
we
is.
love PK, and she connected us, as well as Janet, who I had on the show, and and we met through the meetings and events industry,
Yeah,
which again we both love and are passionate about. And of course, we can talk about business. We can always talk about business, but
right.
the juicy stuff that I love is who we are as people
Yeah.
and how we show up in the world. Because the work is just is a part of what we do, but it
Hmm.
is the integration of who we are in spirit, right? Our soul, and how we integrate that into our lives,
Hmm.
which I find very interesting. So you start out by saying that you've been to 82, you said 82
82
countries.
countries. Yeah, the last one was
I mean,
Georgia.
come on. When the travel bug bit you when? When was the first time that you knew you wanted to? First of all, I think travel is the best education anyone
It
could
is.
ever
It is.
have.
It
And
is.
you learn so much about yourself and about humanity being out in the world instead of being in this little microcosm of what you think is everything in the world, which is your neighborhood or your city, and you
Hmm.
get beyond, even if you're just traveling in the country, but getting out of the country is just so powerful. So when
So
did you get that bug, that
my
travel bug?
mom likes to say she took me on a plane at 2 weeks old. It was a family friend's plane. And yeah, I did a lot of traveling with my parents. They were, my dad was like, let's go to Rio, let's go to Acapulco, and those like 60s types of things. But I will tell you where I really got the bug for travel that opens you up for not a vacation, but travel, which I consider them to be different.
Okay, so tell me about how different that is.
A vacation is where you go to a great resort for, 5 days to 2 weeks, and you live a visitor lifestyle in the resort. That's very curated. It's very sort of the same no matter what country you go to, very often. Traveling is where you travel as a person who is trying to reach the culture of a country. You don't stay in a large resort. You may stay in a pension or a guest house or some kind of hostel or a homestay. You take risks like meeting people and hanging out with them for weeks, right? You don't even know these people, but all of a sudden they're your best travel buddies for a couple of weeks until you move on. It is really a different experience than that curated, I'm going to a resort, I'm going to the pool, beach, room, dinner. That's not what it is.
And when was the first time that you did that?
I will tell you this story. And because it is, again, when you have like these crazy blessings that take you to another place in your life, is a seminal point in my life. I was with two of my aunts, Allison and Connie, and we drove down from San Diego to like this Rosarito near beach area. Estero Beach, it's called, hotel. We stayed at this hotel down there. And I told my aunt, oh, on the bucket list is they had these horses on the beach, is me riding a white stallion down the beach. And so my Aunt Allison said, oh, I'll do that with you. My Aunt Connie was like, I'm not doing that. I don't like horses. So my Aunt Allison and I went, and I'm riding this bareback stallion down the beach and like, woohoo, with these Mexican kids who were like helping us with the horses. And we came back all, oh my gosh, what a time. And my Aunt Connie says to me, oh, I met these girls. One is Rebecca and the other one is Elizabeth. One of them lost their watch. So we all started helping these girls look for their watch. Well, we never find the watch, and we end up saying, hey, let's all go to dinner. So these two gals were from Utah. We went to dinner, and it was one of those dinners. It lasted like 6 hours. Everybody in the restaurant was singing, and, it was just one of those crazy nights, right? And then the next day we hung out again because they were camping on the beach, and we were at the hotel right behind. And one of the gals, Rebecca, says to me, hey, I won a National Endowment for the Humanities grant from the government, and I'm going to travel for a year. I'm a teacher, and I'm going to go travel around the world. And I was like, wow, I'd love to do that. She's like, come with me. So evidently, Rebecca made this offer to probably 20 people that she knew in her life. I was the only one who got rid of their apartment, packed up their stuff, left New York City in a U-Haul, drove across the country, and then flew to Australia to do it. You know what I mean?
How old were you?
24.
Wow.
And my mother was so angry. She's like, people don't do this. You'll never find another apartment in New York. That's how she tried to entice me. But it was something that I knew I was called to do. That I just knew this is something I wanted to do. And back then, remember, we didn't have any cell phones. We didn't have the connected digital world. I mean, my connection to my family was the American Express office. My mom gave me an American Express card because there were, at that time, 1,000 American Express offices around the world. And you could get mail, you could get money, they would help you. It was a different kind of approach to travel. And we set off. And, we went to Bali for 6 weeks, and I learned the Ramayana dance story, and I studied art in Ubud, and, we cycled, and we went on tuk-tuks, and this was so foreign to me. It was crazy. We paid $5 a night for a great place to stay that had a fantastic breakfast. My favorite was the banana pancakes. And that started it off. And then we went to Malaysia, and we went to Thailand, and we went to Nepal, and we went to India. And we just stayed weeks, and we met people, and we hung out with them for a while, and then we all moved on. And it was really an amazing time. And when I got to Europe, I had met this guy in Thailand, and I decided that I was in love. So yes, I went to live with him and his grandmother, his parents, in Germany. Yeah, that didn't last. But his mom and I became best friends. So I had to tell his mom, and she didn't speak any English, and I spoke German a little bit because I had taken it in college. But I decided I had to leave, so I went where Rebecca was, and she was in Greece. And then
So you had left Rebecca to take a side trip.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had done that a few times. Like, Rebecca was the queen of love. She would meet a guy, and she'd be like, whoop! I'm going to Chiang Mai with him on an elephant trek I'll be back in 13 days. It's what she'd say, okay, that's when I met that guy, because I was like by myself hanging around on Koh Samui. And anyway, so it all became, and then I lived in Greece for like months. I actually ended up getting a job there illegally, of course. But so everybody, when people say things about illegal immigrants, I'm like, I actually was an illegal immigrant running from the police and trying to work. I know exactly how that feels.
And so how long were you in Greece?
Off and on, about 9 months.
Wow. Okay, so you went longer than a year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then I came back for a couple of months. It was like the holiday time, and then I went back. I did some more traveling. I went to Holland. I ended up meeting. This is another funny story. I had bought that ticket to Germany. It was a bus ticket, an old school like student bus ticket cheap ticket through Europe. So I left Rebecca on Mykonos to go to Germany, and I got halfway in the ocean. I was sleeping on the bench in the snack bar of the ferry boat in Greece. I woke up. Oh my God, I left the ticket in Mykonos, the bus ticket. So I'm halfway to Athens on a ferry. I have no ticket that I paid for to Germany. So I wake up, I'm like, oh my God. It was an L-shaped, like snack bar booth thing. There was some guy asleep on the other side. He woke up too. What's wrong? He said. So I tell him his name is Eric. So Eric starts to tell me his incredible life story. He had been gay and he met this woman. She was such an amazing woman. He had to leave. He left the man for the woman. It was like a crazy story back then, because back then people weren't really fluid. So in this 6 hours we had left on this slow night ferry, we became friends. And he was from Holland. He marched into this ticket office. We walked there from the bus from the port. And he told them, "This is my girlfriend and she has lost her ticket. I demand a new ticket now." And here's 24-year-old me like, I don't yell at people. So he got the ticket. Second ticket. And that's when the people said, "Are you sure you want the same ticket? Because you have this ticket stopping at Sarajevo." I'm like, "What? I never heard there was a war on. What are you talking about?" So anyway, I got to Sarajevo. The people were like, I was like, "No, I saw the smoke." I was like, Vienna. Vienna sounds great right now.
I'm out.
There. Yeah. But anyway, just funny stuff. And that woman that he fell in love with ended up being one of my best friends of life. Her name was Yolanda. And I was living in Germany, wasn't going well with Christian, the guy, and called up Eric, the number he had given me, the guy with the ticket. Wasn't going well. His girlfriend answered. We started talking for a couple of hours, and we didn't even know each other. He had just told me about her on the boat, but she and I connected that quickly. And I said, "Well, I'm going to go back to Greece." She said, "You are?" I said, "Yeah, why don't you come? Just come for the summer." So she came to Greece and lived too. And she had a child at that time, was 2. And we became lifelong friends. Lifelong friends. And she passed 2 years ago.
Oh.
Very sad. And I knew when she passed because I exploded in crying. I knew something had happened. And strangely enough, I went on Facebook, and it was Eric's post that said she had passed. She had breast cancer.
I am so sorry. This is, there's so many different directions that my head is spinning of where I want to go. You give such juicy stuff to work with.
I have a little bit of a cuckoo background.
But
Yeah.
adventurous.
It is.
Well, and one of the many things I love about you is your generosity of spirit, and you're very warm and open and just very generous with yourself, and so I think that probably came also with the traveling, right? To be open to new conversations and really getting to know new people. So you're great at that, and it's authentic. It's not put on or forced. That's who you are.
It came from my upbringing, to be honest.
I love your mom.
My mom is wonderful, but it came from a place that I didn't really appreciate until the last few years. My mom it came from church. I grew up in a church that was a very mixed church, racially, age-wise, ethnically, everything. But it was about giving and openness, and church is about people. It's not just about dogma. And I never really realized how much that got in there. And
what part of the country were you?
That church. New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay. And it's funny because the other word that came to me when I was preparing for you was the word community.
Yeah.
And we've never really talked about that word, but apparently that's where we're supposed to be going. And you gave a nice segue for that. So your early childhood was community in the church. So
Yeah, and like the modern United Methodist Church, it taught me community. It taught me to be open. It was a very mixed environment, socioeconomically, racially, and everything. It wasn't like a traditional church where people cleave to people like us. It wasn't that way. And then I went to youth group, and I was, an officer in youth group, and I was an officer in the church at the national level. When I was in high school, I was flying all over for church business. So it taught me Robert's rules. It taught me about business, and how to be a leader.
the church did.
The church did. And that community and that fostering, the people who believed in me and supported me and loved me, such a huge group of people. It gives you some kind of, it imbues you with a sense of confidence to do things that, like go meet somebody on a beach and say, yeah, I'll go backpacking with you around the world. Sure. I don't think we're going to be killed.
We need more of that kind of church now. It seems like we've gone backwards in so many ways, but a church that you describe as, just to me, when I hear the variety that you name, to me that's just humanity, and that's the mindfulness approach to life, right? There's no judgment. We're here to be of service, right?
Yeah.
Not service to self, but service to others. And we're here to praise God.
Yes.
So God to you means what?
Well, I had so many, and I went to church in the 70s, right? It was a little woo-woo. We had things that stick in my mind, like one youth minister who said, St. Francis said, pray ceaselessly. Live your life as a prayer. And it is about people. It is about connections. And it is about service. And when you give, that benefits you. You shouldn't be selfish with your love. You shouldn't be selfish with your support. It was very useful information, and I'll never forget my Sunday school teacher, Mr. Doherty. Mr. Doherty, if you ever see this, I owe you a big debt of gratitude. He said, you kids, I'll never forget this Sunday. We were in our Sunday school, and he said, you kids are so lucky. I must have been probably 16 when he said this. I grew up Irish Catholic. And he goes, we did not have this. We only had people other like us. You kids are very lucky that you are able to live in a community that's very mixed, to grow up in this church where we're all here together from all over the world, and to be able to learn to love and tolerate and celebrate people who are different from you. He goes, that is not always the way church is. And he said, you should really be appreciative of this experience. So he had come from somewhere different and and I will never forget it because it was an eye-opening moment. I never thought about it, I knew that a lot of my older members of my family, like my grandmother, they went to, of course, a black church. It was very traditional. It was a different experience than I had at my church. And then I went to an Episcopalian school that was very British, and a prep school, and, sort of... But that experience at my regular Sunday church, to this day, is an amazing experience. To this day, my mom goes to that church, and people send their love, they send their appreciation. And my mom hangs out with people I went to high school, was there in high school with, and it's still a beautiful experience.
And why did your parents choose that church?
I think because in the 70s, when we moved to that town in like 1968 in New Jersey, and it was the Church of the Smiley Faces. And I can, because the way there's a decoration in the design that is actually a cross, but when you back up, it looks like a smiley face. So and I remember they had a float in the town's like Memorial Day parade or something with these yellow smiley face stickers, which were very popular back then, stuck all over this float. And I can remember thinking, I would like to go there. And I remember we tried another church first, but in third grade, we ended up at that church and never looked back.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, church, and when people say church is terrible, religion is divisive, all this kind of stuff, I say it doesn't have to be. That's not everyone's experience.
Well, I think that's a statement for everything in life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this way. We
Yeah.
don't have to be divided. It is a choice to be divided.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I think if you're lucky, you are around people when you grow up that tell you that it's a choice to be negative and divided.
yeah.
A lot of people don't have that, and it seems to be getting less and less. It's more prominent to find reasons to divide ourselves. If I read one more article about how to not have your relatives who disagree with you at the holidays, I'm like, this is unheard. This is unbelievable.
Well, and the more that you focus on that, right, the more you're going to amplify that.
Yeah.
So if you show up full of love, full of light, being in service, like, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your day. What lights you up? I love that question. Right.
Yeah.
So, being genuinely interested in other people, what makes you different? How boring it would be if we were all
All
alike.
the same. Yes.
Oh, how boring. I mean, it's boring for me to be me. I have to change my hair. I have to do things, right? I need to have some variety.
Switch it up.
Right, I gotta switch it up.
Yeah.
Um,
And also, what happened to, okay, agree to disagree and move on?
Thank you.
Weren't we all raised that way?
Thank you. Well, no, but not my family. No, I think we can evolve to it. But we disagreed on things over our friendship, and it has not changed how much I love you. And
Yeah.
hopefully, it has not changed how much you love me.
Not at all.
And
And it is agree to disagree. I mean, you're not going to agree with everybody, and that's what makes the world go round.
Right.
That's what drives innovation, in my opinion. Silicon Valley has a long history of people who didn't agree. There's a famous story about how Twitter got even invented because the people who were working on some project could not agree. They didn't get along. So one guy went off and invented something that became Twitter. So, I mean, there is something for disagreement, but I think we've lost our way in terms of doing it in a way that's inclusive and polite.
Yeah, and so we have to practice it, and we have to be it and embody it. And it brings up the idea of beliefs. And anyone who has listened to this show will know that I say this a lot, and that is, I believe that beliefs should not be unchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
That if you don't allow room to expand, to ponder other options, to listen to another way, you will atrophy. And I have seen it in my own life that my belief system has evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I know to be true for myself today. And I hope that that will change, because that means that I'm evolving, that I'm getting new information. And as as humanity is evolving and we are getting new information brought to us, I mean, if you go on social media right now, everything is about extraterrestrials, right? UFOs, and I forget what the other name is. I don't know, some other name that they're using for UFOs. But I'm like, I like the what ifs, right? That allows you to stretch. It allows you to consider other things. And the more that you practice that, then the more open you can be.
You're so right about evolution. You have to evolve. You have to push yourself. And this is what I find with myself. You have to question yourself. What you say, what you think, and not so that you're like always like, oh my gosh, you can't make a decision, but you have to think about, especially the negative things you think, and you have to try to flip it. And I've been trying to really sow those seeds for a lot of people, because naturally a lot of people aren't happy about what happened in the election. I live here in Northern California, so a lot of people kept saying, well, I'm depressed or this. I said, if you let this depress you, no. I said, flip it. Okay, we're all going to make a lot of money the next 4 years. It's going to be about money and what we can get. Everything's cyclical, so maybe the next 4 years are about maximizing our revenue, personally and otherwise, right? I don't know.
Well, I love that idea of flipping it, because we don't have all the information.
Yeah.
I wish I knew everything. I asked, like, I would love to make known the unknown. I'd love to know all the mysteries of the world and the universe, right? Well, I don't, and I couldn't even measure what I know, right? So maybe, again, what if, that there is a divine plan
Mm-hmm.
for what we are going to evolve into, and we may not know how that divine plan gets to the end result of something amazing.
Yeah.
I hold the space. We're moving into the age of Aquarius, right? And that is, I'm going to get woo woo in a minute. And that astrologically means that we are in a period of uncovering, making known the unknown, uncovering that which was once hidden. It
Mm-hmm.
is more abundant, more prosperous, more conscious,
Yes.
right? And in that space, you could even say Christ consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that space, that's like heaven on earth. That's like the Garden of Eden. That's what I want to move into. That's what I would love humanity to evolve into.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that Creator, God, Source, the Divine Universe, Spirit, whatever name you want to use for all that is always vying for our highest and best, individually and collectively. Now, it may not look that way in our lives. You might be in a period of time where you are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're in a really bad relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's a lot of contrast in this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you are struggling financially.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't see a way out and things are getting worse in those circumstances. Well, people, we have these phrases like, it's darker before the dawn for a
Yes.
reason. And
Yes.
so if Creator is always vying for our highest and best, and it's looking pretty dark, well, we can choose to say, hey, I'm getting closer to a breakthrough. I'm getting closer to something amazing. Or you can wallow in that dark space that you're in and really energetically just make it more difficult to get that
Out
breakthrough.
of it. Yeah.
So
And
whether
you
it's
told me
politics,
that a couple of weeks ago, remember? I cannot believe how much that lifted me. And it's still lifting me. Where I was in a dark place around all of this grief, all of these people that I've lost. Lost so many people over the past 4 years. And I told you, well, I'm considering a grief group. And you were like, why are you going to wallow in that? You have to face the future and move forward and think about, yes, you remember it, but you move through it. That was transformational for me.
oh, I'm glad.
Because I was really preparing for a good old sinking in. And I didn't need to do that. That's not what those people would want of me either. The people that I lost. So I think what you're saying about you will come out of the other side of these things. I think many of us have had financial difficulties, love difficulties. I myself was in a very deep depression. And now I thought, well, what is my life really worth? I don't have children. I don't have a husband anymore. And I've lost all these people. What is the good? And look where I am a few months later. And I am so grateful for that. Because if you didn't have the dark, you wouldn't appreciate the light. You wouldn't feel the light. You wouldn't revel in where you've been able to come to if you didn't have to go through those difficult periods. And this evolution you were just talking about really is from lessons that the universe and you teach yourself throughout your life. And as you learn these lessons, you move ahead and ahead and ahead. And when you get older, I'm pretty old now, you look back and you can see a path where you've grown. You can see a calming of the nervous system, of the soul. Things that used to upset you don't upset you anymore because you see the bigger picture. And that is really the amazing gift that aging is. And I've come to see that as the positive side of aging.
That is also good. Thank you. On my list of things to talk to you about, it's like we're psychically tuned in. Was aging. How do you deal with it, and do you fear it? But before we get to that, I want to talk about what you said about the dark times in our lives, because a lot of people are suffering. A lot of people are challenged.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us grew up in the era of the fairy tale. Happily ever after, whatever variation of that fairy tale. And that we weren't taught that life is supposed to have contrast. It is the point.
Yes.
And so we have spent our lives waiting for the happily ever after, only to resist the contrast. And the contrast is our greatest teacher. And the contrast is how we grow and expand and understand life.
Yeah.
And so I hope that I was able to teach my son that you use the contrast. You don't really invite it. Nobody really wants to invite the contrast. But when it shows up, you're like, oh, it's like a video game, right? How am I going to get through this? What is it teaching me? It's not going to last. It's the purpose of moving through it and how you're going to navigate it that helps you become the better version of yourself on the other side.
Yes.
So thank you for volleying that up for me, because I did want to get that out. So let's talk about aging. And in a world that, we're bombarded by all kinds of anti-aging creams and processes and options of surgery and all of that kind of thing. I think especially for women. I know some men, are also actively pursuing the anti-aging. But I think we're also turning a point around that as well. I hear it being discussed more. Pamela Anderson, who is now showing up on talk shows and things like that with no makeup and really embracing her age, and how important it is for us to embrace the wisdom that comes. You said it yourself about, we reach a certain age and you're like, you know what, I'm just not going to stress over that. I'm not going to put my nervous system through that. Oh, my body feels like it wants to rest. Oh yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yes. And, for me, aging is not stressful, to be honest. It was about the time menopause started, and then I was like, well, whatever. We're here now. Let's just go with this.
Nothing I can do about it.
No baby that's coming now, so let's just go ahead and move on. And, I'm 18 months from 60, and
Congratulations.
Sometimes I'm like, 60? But then I'm like, look at all I have done. And I feel very at peace with it. And I think people should. I don't think it's necessarily that you don't have to wear makeup. I think for her, that's a big signal or symbol because she did that so much.
Sure.
But I think for those of us who like makeup, like me, you should wear makeup if it makes you happy. The bottom line is probably do what makes you feel good in the skin you're in. It doesn't mean don't strive to change or don't get facials or don't use creams. If that makes you feel good, then you should do it because
Agreed.
when you feel good, you look good. And if something gives you confidence and makes you feel relaxed or feel younger or whatever it is, I say go with it, ladies. Don't let anybody tell you. But don't let a bunch of people tell you what you should look like.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. There's a lot of these makeup tutorials and things. Look, I take a minute 30 to put on makeup. I've got it down to a science because, you hit the chair, you got to get on those Zooms. But it's not something I would spend like 2 hours. And I got my makeup done in London last weekend. And it was after a facial, and I got my makeup done. I was there with a friend. She got her makeup done. We looked fantastic. But it took me 20 minutes to get that makeup off. I'm in my hotel room with just going through
A chisel.
I said, how do people do this? There was so much makeup. And it was not what I was used to. And I just was like, oh, my skin was almost prickling to get it off. But I don't think, I think it's what makes you feel good. And realize this is the biggest thing, I think. Recognize the difference between something that's really going to make you feel good or make you feel like it's working for you and just rampant consumerism. And do you really need to buy that thing or that cream or that lotion? Do you need to put 5 hair products on your hair every morning? Is it, I see these other TikToks with these people putting like 4 or 5 or 6 things that cost $70, $80, $100 for a bottle. Really?
Well, I think it also has to do with is it filling a void in some way? Is it masking something? Like I can't wait to get my makeup off. But I do it because if I'm doing a Zoom, right, or if we're
Yeah.
doing a video, I don't want to scare anybody. But I don't use a lot of makeup, but it's a choice, and sometimes I think it's fun. It's like it's a creative outlet, right? I love the pretty colors and things like that. But I know at one point in my life when I was younger, there would be no way I would let somebody see me without makeup.
Yeah, I've
And
never been that person. In fact, I was
yeah,
like today, I'm putting on makeup on a Saturday for Lee.
yeah.
Because normally I wouldn't.
I love you any which way. But again, I think it's the intention with
Mm-hmm.
anything that we're doing. If you're doing something to fill a void or to mask something, then check yourself on that.
Yeah, that's it. It's filling a void. And filling the void is, in my opinion, we just have too much stuff here in the US.
Yeah.
We have tried to fill the void with another product and another product or another item or another whatever. It's so much.
Yeah, it's exhausting. I mean, like chasing anything is very exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, so I
So,
think that's the aging thing is do what's right for you, but don't overbuy, don't go into debt doing it, and don't feel that your authentic face is never good enough because many times it is.
well, yeah, always our anytime we're in our authentic space. I think the best beauty trick, meditation, prayer, a walk. Because when the light within you is ignited and bright, then doesn't matter what you put on your face. That light is going to
So true.
shine through your eyes, and that's the most beautiful makeup tip ever.
You are so right about that. When there's a light inside of you, there's no makeup that
Right.
shines as
I
well
mean,
as that.
like, think about when you fall in love
Yeah.
and you're lit up, you're glowing and you're lit up, and that light is the love that you feel inside you. Or when I was pregnant, and when you see someone who is especially newly pregnant, there is a light in them.
There really.
And those kinds of things. I think if we focus more on our optimal health and well being, mind, body, and spirit, and less on the external in any facet,
Mm,
whether it's your clothes or your car or any outward materialistic experience to try to fill this void, you're better off just going inside. And I think that that scares a lot of people, like quiet time, learning who they truly are, their own best friend, and connecting to source, connecting to God, connecting to spirit. You get finished with a meditation, you're going to look like you have a facelift.
well, and I think too, when you take that time and you work on yourself and you work on your well being mentally and physically, of course, you can see people. You can see a person for the their essence better. I think you can connect with people better. It's not just about the outward. This person is wearing a Gucci purse, or this person is, dressed for. You can actually see people regardless of where they are in life or their journey or how you met them or came into contact with them. You begin to be able to really look at them as humans and connect with that essence of humanity. And that is sometimes a hard thing for people to do, I think. I always say America is a wonderful place. We don't need to make it great because it's already great, because Americans are people who want to help. They do try to do their best in large numbers. They do build community. They do give you this. So many people would give you the shirt off their back. And I read a blog a few years ago about this student. He was from China, and he was going from his university that he had been attending in Boston to San Francisco for the summer for an internship. And he had a blog. And the blog was him bicycling across the country. He had no hotels. He had nothing. He had like a tent and a backpack, and that was it. And he said America was such a generous country that he would ask people, "Can I camp in your yard? Is this your property? Do you mind if I camp here for the night? I'm cycling." He has a very heavy accent. He's from China. Do you mind if I, just stay out in your yard for the night? And he said 90% of the time, people would be like, "Never. No, you come in this house. You will sleep here." He gave him dinner. He was telling these stories about amazing people of all backgrounds across the country who gave this man whatever they had for that evening meal, gave him a place to sleep in most cases, let him shower or whatever he needed. He got into some great conversations, and then he moved on. And he came, by the time he got to San Francisco, where weirdly his bike was stolen.
That's too
He
bad.
got all the way across the country. He was here 2 hours. The bike was stolen.
Oh.
Terrible, but he got it back. He actually got it back, and there was a story about that too. But it is, to me, what I see is the essence. And having traveled so much, I have stopped in other countries when I've seen people with their hood up and said, "Hey, do you need any help?" And they've been like, "Get away from us."
Really?
Yes. It's not the same thing. It is, so we have a unique sense of community in this country. And I think it's a beautiful place. I love my country. I love America. I wake up every day trying to see the good in her, because there is so much. We're the first ones there if you have an earthquake or a tsunami, or you need some help, or you need your kids adopted. Who's doing that? Americans.
And it's at that grassroots
Yes.
level. It's at the
Correct.
community level.
Yes.
Um, you were talking about all the traveling that you did, and I mean, I'm in awe of you. And my ex-husband did that kind of traveling, and am in awe of everything that he did. And of course, when you're doing it younger, you're fearless. I think at that
Yes,
age.
absolutely.
Um, I'm not sure I could have done it.
You could have done it, because, as you said, I didn't think twice. I saw adventure, and I happened to be able to travel with my friend Rebecca. Was an amazing person. I mean, the next year, her Christmas letter was how she met Mother Teresa and like the Pope. I mean, she was that person in my life, who had those adventures, and I admired that. But again, because we come from a place where we could come together and do that. And I think that's the beautiful thing about this country. That's why so many people want to be here, because we have a very unique culture that, as you said, at the grassroots, when you deal with American, we do for each other every day. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe what you see on TV. Shut it down. Don't believe the negativity, because the reality is we do for each other each day. And it is a joy to live amongst each other in many cases.
Amen, sister.
Amen.
I totally agree. Yep, I love my country too. And oh my gosh, so many things I still want to talk to you about. So you were raised in the church. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you pray?
I do. And because I think prayer works. And
What does that look like?
I had a friend, Ebe. She was an older Italian lady here in the Bay Area. And she was in her 80s, and we would get up every morning, Saturday morning, go to yard sales together. This went on for a couple of years until I was like, I have too much stuff. I need to stop going to these yard sales. But one time I got laid off from a marketing job at some tech company in the Valley. And a couple of weeks later, she came to my house for lunch. And I said, I got a job. And she said, I know. I did a novena for you. 9 days of focused prayer, she did. And do you know I got that job almost to the day? It was stunning to me. And it was a woo-woo moment. And my mother always puts up those prayer cards in church. And I told her, put up a prayer, I'll do it by proxy. Like, yes, can you please put up a prayer card about, and my mom, being as cute as she does it. But I really believe it. I do it myself, and I wish I did it when things were tougher, a little bit more regularly, but I tend to do it when I'm very, very grateful, and I'm so happy for what I've been given. At any moment in time, whether it's an experience or something that I really needed, or moving to a different place mentally, being able to get through something. And it's been very helpful to me.
I love prayer, and I ask everybody the same question, and I love hearing how prayer is integrated in everyone's life. You are the first person that said you pray more when you're grateful. Most people pray when they're down and out or whatever, and please, please, I need this, right? That kind of thing.
Now, I just tend to go right to self-flagellation mode.
Yeah.
Oh, and I tend to talk to myself about how badly I've done something. And no, but I am, like, especially because I just moved, as I told you a few weeks ago, and I moved to a place that I never dreamed I would be able to live. I live right on the water. As we're talking, like, these kayaks and canoes are going by. It is just such a blessing to be in this kind of nature every day, right outside my window where I work. And every day I would get up so grateful. And I just want to share what I feel with other people that I know and love. So my Thanksgiving, I probably spent 12 hours on the phone. Yak, 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 yak with people. Just catching up with people that I haven't talked to in a while because I wanted to reach out and make sure they heard from me.
Yeah.
And it was a great thing. I mean, I woke up to 20 messages. So it was that kind of a year where I think people, sometimes you just have a lot, you're full of abundance and you go through difficult periods where you feel like nobody cares, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
And there's always something to be grateful for.
So
even
true.
in your darkest times.
Yes.
If you can't meditate, if you can't bring yourself to pray, if you just get to the point where you can be grateful for the simplest of things, that we become so, I don't know, we forget about the sight. We forget that we get to taste and we can still eat, and that we have arms and hands to hug someone.
Yeah.
That you have feet or legs to walk around the block. We get so paralyzed by our circumstance or our situation or our perceived limits that we atrophy again and forget the things that we have all around us.
It is so true, Lee, and we are so, if you can pick up and put one leg in front of the other in the morning. I was watching a report the other day about how difficult it is for people who have physical disabilities, but even have university degrees or something, to get jobs because they wheel themselves in. The girl was saying, I wheel in there, and they're like, oh no. And I was so just moved by how lucky I am. Well, yeah, like my body is big and I'm always like, oh, well, you look terrible. I mean, this woman is facing it takes her like 2 hours to get ready. She has to get a special transport to even get to a job. And I really started looking up, how can I try to hire more Americans with disabilities? Because I do a lot of remote work anyway. And you don't realize when you're not as grateful or in a place of gratitude as you could be, how many people are really struggling seriously and can't change their circumstance. And they still have a positive attitude. That lady was still getting up and getting in her wheelchair every day.
Yeah, and people that you wouldn't realize, I'm going to go back to our perceptions. You said that you saw a picture of me in the poster at a meetings event, right? And that there was a perception. I've had people say to me, oh, but I had no idea you were going through that because, you don't seem like you're struggling or unhappy or whatever. So our simplest kindnesses to everyone is so important. You have no idea how the simple kindness can make a difference.
So much.
I have the meditations on Insight Timer. They're free meditations. And sometimes when I'm struggling, I'll go and look at the reviews. And I'm like, somebody took the time to write a simple review, but they don't realize how impactful that can be.
The smallest gesture can be transformative in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I moved back here from Seattle in 2010, and everyone was like, oh, 2010, it was economically a difficult time in the Bay Area. People were like, you're never going to find a job. It's going to be tough. And I went to Starbucks to get the movers coffee. So I had all these coffees and like pastries, and I was trying to open the door, and a guy opened the door for me to get out of the Starbucks, and there was a long line of people, and he said, why do you have so much stuff? And I said, well, I just moved back from Seattle today. The whole line was like, yay, welcome back. I was so taken aback by that. And I said, this was the right decision. I'm in the right place.
You got
and
a
of course,
message.
never look back again. Loving my Northern California. Cold dead hands remove me. But that small gesture of those silly, sweet people saying, 10 people, welcome back. So nice.
It's a beautiful message for you. Yeah. We have messages. Life can be very magical, even in the darkest of times, to be open to the messages that are all around us.
So magical. Like that song, I love this awful, beautiful life. Have you ever heard that song?
Uh-uh.
Oh, yeah. It's like Daryl Worley, I believe.
Is it a country song?
It is a country song. I love my country music.
I have grown to love country music. I go through stages, and I'll have to look it up.
You have to listen to Awful Beautiful Life because it does kind of tell a little story like many country songs, but that song touched me so much the first time I heard it. And I always think of it like, well, you got your ups and downs, but you got to love this life because it's the one you've been given.
Yeah.
And, you're going to make the best of it.
So that's a segue to it's the one that you've been given.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe in an afterlife?
Absolutely. I believe this is not my first time here.
Okay. So you believe in reincarnation?
I totally believe in reincarnation. And I believe I'm learning lessons to continue evolving from my past life. And sometimes I feel remnants of my past life.
Mm.
And I kind of know who I was. I'm not going to go into that, but I feel like I know who I was. And I also meet people I know are old souls. And I have a friend who believes she's a blonde lady. She believes she was a black man in her last life, and she's being taught these lessons now. So I think there's something to reincarnation, but I can't prove it. But I have a feeling.
Well, and I think that that's an important thing to honor what we feel to be true. That's faith, right?
Mm.
And I believe also that, especially since I had the near-death experience, and I have maybe a little more knowledge on that topic because of it. But I believe we've all been all varieties. We've been every color of the rainbow, and we've been ethnicities and leanings and everything, genders, and so it's so silly to be judgmental because we've all been everything. So because the contrast brings clarity, it brings wisdom and knowledge. So what did you want to come in and learn? Everybody has something that they're dealing with. Again, we go back to the kindness factor. To be jealous of someone else's life, you have no idea what's in store for them or what's going on in their life now that they're not sharing. So if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything.
Well, a lot of people could learn from that, but including myself, sometimes I'm a little critical. But I do think, you've got to find a way to live in the skin you're in and celebrate it. Because back again, that light will shine through no matter what you look like on the outside if you have that internal one. If you have that tuned up and turned on, it doesn't really matter what you look like.
And yours, well, you're beautiful, but you also have that tuned up and turned up. I love your light. I know I've had you for quite a long time, and I appreciate all the time that you're giving me. Maybe a couple more questions. What would be the biggest aha of your life?
I would say that probably the biggest aha is that I'm very good at what I do professionally. That I am not hype. I can be a change agent. I can be inspirational. I'm a good leader. And I can get a job done well. And that is something that I'm very proud of. I like my professional life, and I appreciate working with people from all walks of life and helping them see what they can do professionally. And particularly love working with other women to help inspire them to start a business, grow a business, not to be fearful of the inertia of I would really like to do X, but I haven't moved forward. So it's probably around being the professional that I am and really saying I am good at what I am and I have something meaningful to give in terms of business.
And explain what you do, please.
I am a fractional CMO, and I also produce events. I do a lot of, as we've been together, teaching of technology in terms of things like little snippets like productivity tools or business tools or the like at different events as well. And I've done that for a long time. And it's called a tech bar, but I like to call it tech therapy, really, where we help people with a range of technology questions and problems. But it's probably that my mom was a teacher, and I used to say to her, I would never be a teacher. Well, what do you think that word is? I want to be a business person. But there is a certain element of mentoring teams where you are a teacher. You have to give people the tools to learn what they're good at, and then you have to manage to strength, manage to what they're good at. And then you see people who've worked with me. I am very fortunate that I still talk to people who worked with me 30 years ago in some cases. And I love to see where they are in their careers. And I really love helping people move forward in their careers as well. If I can do anything to contribute, I'm happy to do that.
And obviously we've worked together at the same events, and so I've seen your tech bar, and it's and I love to just sit back. I even have pictures of you. I think I sent them to you last year, watching you teach while while you have the group there, and also at the bar. And the one thing that I absolutely love about it as well is a lot of times it's very intimidating to come with a technology question where you think it's stupid, right? You never ever make people feel like they don't know what they're talking about, and you gently guide them to the answer, right? And now with technology moving so fast, there is, I would assume, a greater need for what you do, because it's hard to keep up with AI and all the options that are out there with technology, and I think it's going to get faster and faster. But what does your optimal client look like?
Well, that's funny. Again, just like your own personal essence, your business essence moves forward and evolves as well. And it used to be very much just doing my tech thing and doing the marketing thing, but I love producing events. And I've been very fortunate that I've probably produced, 3 or 4 big events a year in the past few years, and I've loved it.
And with your international experience, I would suspect that that's a big plus for you.
It is, and it's and I'm producing this event in Jordan at this point. That's now coming up in February. We had to postpone from this month, but it is just culturally learning things in terms of international events as well is very interesting. But I do love pulling together all of these threads and producing that sizzle. I always say I'm a frustrated Shonda Rhimes out here trying to produce some sizzle at business events. We're going to have a little, these big opening videos and these, all of the stuff that I like to do. And it really is a joy to be able to do that as well.
It's a creative outlet as well.
It is. It is.
because you have both sides of that brain is very activated instead of just all technology. Okay, and as we're wrapping up, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, well, they can go to the website, meetingpool.net, and reach out to me or just email me at Tara, T-A-R-A, at meetingpool.net.
Perfect. And I'll have the links also in the description.
And
As
let me
we're
say, I'm happy to talk to anybody about anything. It doesn't have to be about business or work. You just want a jawbone, drop me a line. I'd love to hear your story.
jawbone, I love that. Um, you know my son, and he's a young adult, and I ask everyone at the end of their interview to give some advice to him or the younger generation, like from what you have learned thus far in your life, or if it's more comfortable for you, your younger self. What piece of wisdom or advice would you give?
Take every single job you can get. Work till you drop when you're young and you have energy. I would work all day. I would work at diners, donut shops, Blockbuster, you name it. I was cleaning toilets in Greece. Remember I told you I was an illegal immigrant? Take every job that you are given the opportunity to work. It will contribute to narrowing what you like to do, what you're good at, and it will lead to additional opportunity. Don't judge a job before you've done it.
Oh, that's good. That is so good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I love
I
you,
think
Joy.
that's what I see in young people. They're sitting there thinking, well, do I really want to? Just do the job, right? And it will benefit you, particularly when you're young.
It's great advice. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate the time. I love you, darling.
I love you too, Lee Papa. You know I do. You are a blessing, a transformational blessing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care. Bye,
All
everybody.
right.
I'll see you
Thank
again.
you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.